I am Master Sergeant Silva Foster. I'm a C-17 Loadmaster with the 301st Airlift Squadron. I have 2,700 hours flying on a C-17 aircraft.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel Dominic Calderon. I'm a C-17 aircraft commander and an instructor pilot with the 301st Airlift Squadron here at Travis. I have about 4,400 hours in the C-17.
My name is First Lieutenant Kyle Anderson. I'm a C-17 pilot with the 301st Airlift Squadron. I have about 600 hours in the C-17.
I am a citizen reserve airman, and we voluntarily deployed, so we were there from the middle of July, and we were there when the operation began.
We had deployed actually as a crew, 5 of us, a co-pilot by the name of Jalen Anderson, and another loadmaster by the name of Mike Brown, who are not here today for the interview. They were not on that crew on the 15th of August. But we went out as a crew in July of 2021.
So in the spring of last year, we found out that the 816th, the deployed squadron out at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, was asking for help from crews to come out for a couple months to help augment the deployed squadron out there. So when I found out about that, I came to Lieutenant Colonel Calderon, Major at the time, and asked him if he would deploy with me so I could get some downrange experience and help broaden my horizons as a brand new co-pilot. Kind of felt like I wanted to get some street cred and get myself out there and get some downrange experience before those theaters closed, or that's a good ending to that thought. But
So originally, AMC was looking for crews to reserve and guard crews to give 60 days minimum to this operation this summer, not just the humanitarian evac, the end of the operation, but also the retrograde, which occurred before that. And summer of 2021, having there not been a real summer of 2020 due to COVID, the economy was spinning back up in 2021. People were going back to work. As Silva mentioned, we're all citizen airmen. We have jobs outside of the military. And so it was really difficult, I think, for most reserve and guardsmen to give that sort of time, 60 days, to this operation last summer. Eventually, AMC relented and allowed crews to go out for at least a minimum of 31 days. I think our orders were originally cut for 36, and so that's how we found ourselves out in the Middle East that summer.
Being ready for a mission like what we went through, that's not done by accident. That begins from training. The very beginning, when you first join the Air Force, you go through basic training, you go through tech schools, you go through survival schools. The Air Force Reserve, and especially the 349th Air Mobility Wing, are really good about making sure their airmen get the training and practice to be really good at our jobs. As far as our family is concerned, it may have been my idea for my household to request to deploy. However, my whole family had to volunteer and support me. This way here, while we're out there doing the mission, we can stay focused on the job at hand. And also, in addition to that, being a citizen reserve airman, that means I had another career. My other career, I worked for 26 years in law enforcement, where I had to work in very stressful environments and make sound decisions. And that really helped me out while we were on this specific mission.
I will just reiterate what Silva said with regards to training. For 16 or 17 years, I've been flying the C-17, been in the Air Force, and actually have spent a lot of time in training. I was the chief of student training at Altus, and then the chief of C-17 training at a couple of locations at Altus, again, with a multinational unit. Just really, I've had a focus on training throughout my career. I can absolutely say that training comes into play in a mission like this, and that families absolutely support us.
I don't have much to add other than to reiterate the training that I had, and I was out there to gain more experience. And flying with an experienced aircraft commander and instructor like Lieutenant Colonel Calderon helped to move my experience forward out there.
So, as we had mentioned before, we left Travis in July. So we were stationed with the 816th Expeditionary Airlift Squadron, the deployed C-17 squadron in the Middle East, flying missions which turned out to be mostly support, resupply type missions in the general theater. So it wasn't until mid-August that we actually flew our first mission into Afghanistan. So we had flown one on August 13th, and then the mission in question on August 15th. Those were the two missions that we flew into Afghanistan. We had support from our active duty counterparts, the 816th, that provided us what we colloquially refer to as a ride-along or an over-the-shoulder ride. Dale Becker was the aircraft commander on the 13th of August, kind of showed us the ropes in Kabul. I had been there many times before, but it had been a while, many years, probably at least 4 or 5 years since I had last been there. So that was really helpful, although, I mean, everything changed on the 15th. So we got the phone call, got alerted at a standby alert status on the 15th of August, directed to perform a crew swap on an aircraft that was bringing 116 soldiers to the 1st Brigade Combat Team on the 82nd Airborne. That crew that we were swapping with had carried those soldiers from the States all the way out to the Middle East in one duty day, and then we were swapping the aircraft just to continue the mission, to keep it going, to get those soldiers to Kabul as quickly as possible. We had a few aircraft abnormalities, all of which, though, we were able to correct through flight manual and tech order procedures, and then got airborne, had communications difficulties with Kabul and air traffic control, flew with tactical across the airspace, burned a significant amount of contingency fuel, so that by the time we landed in Kabul, the security situation was already deteriorating. The security of the field was a little bit in question. It was still holding at the time when we landed. Air traffic control and the control tower was still up and running. We landed, delivered our troops in cargo to the airfield, which turned out to be absolutely necessary security for the forthcoming evacuation effort. And then while we were on the ground, experienced the change in the mission, really, which basically kicked off the entire evacuation effort.
I would have to say, for me, in that situation, knowing the dangers that we were faced, I thought that for me the biggest challenge for all of us was time. We were on the ground when the situation changed. The airfield had been breached, and our airplane was open. We had people to load. So that, to me, was my biggest challenge, is we needed to get everything done very quickly and safely and get that airplane closed up with our passengers so that we could safely take off.
I would say communication
CRM
is a challenge in any situation. On the most normal of missions, it's a challenge here on the ground with your loved ones at home. Communication is an issue in a dynamic, changing environment. In aviation, it's a challenge. On this particular day, on the 15th of August, it was an unprecedented difficulty. The three of us had flown together for, I would say, 10, maybe 12 missions previously to this mission on the 15th of August, and so we were very comfortable with one another to the point that I felt we could pick up on even the inflections in our voices and understand the intent that we had with one another. In addition, there was we had another loadmaster on board, Senior Airman Mike Geller, and a flying crew chief, Staff Sergeant Dennis Gonzalez Furman, both of whom are active duty. Mike Geller with the 517th at Elmendorf, and Dennis with the 437th Aircraft Maintenance Squadron out of Charleston. And the two of them provided vital inputs. Dennis in particular was instrumental to the success of the mission because he searched for fuel. You heard me mention earlier that we were a little tight on gas, having burned through all our contingency fuel. We were tight on fuel if we were returning to our destination empty. And now we are being asked to take cargo, floor load as many evacuees as possible in a changing dynamic mission with a non-combatant evacuation that went into execution during our mission. So he searched for fuel, he coordinated with passenger handling, which enabled the loadmasters, Silva and Mike, to prep the cargo floor. We had an Army comm team on board led by Lieutenant William M., who is now an Army Ranger, who also helped prep the floor. Dennis and Silva provided security for the aircraft, along with the Army comm team. There was a lot of help, a lot of assistance that we had. Everybody just kind of sprang into action and did things out of their own initiative in order to get the aircraft in position to depart at the time that it was ready to depart. So we were just quite fortunate that that timing worked out, that we were able to egress the airfield when things really deteriorated.
So I'll start that one off, and then I'll pass it to Master Sergeant Foster. But so after we landed, I came downstairs to help. Once we got all of our Army guys off the aircraft, I came downstairs to help clean up the cargo compartment and also just be an extra set of eyes for security's sake. And while we were down there, a Marine Lieutenant Colonel stepped on board and basically told me, "Hey, I've got 300 people on the ground here that need to get out of here tonight. Can you help me?" And I told him, "Yes, sir, absolutely. We were planning to leave empty, but I think we can take people. We have room for cargo. I just need to talk to our loadmaster and our aircraft commander, and we can coordinate that." And then I'll pass it to Master Sergeant Foster for the actual loading process.
Yeah, initially we filled up every seat that we had, our sidewall seats. We had, I believe it was 2 palletized seat kits. We filled up passengers there. Then at that point, we went ahead and floor-loaded passengers, and we were asking PAX rep, we can take more, but that's all at the moment they had to give us. They were cleared to go. When I was looking around, I saw, I would say, roughly about 25 allies, but they were non-Americans. They had loaded weapons on the airplane, and I felt that could be a security threat for us. I don't know, they're non-Americans, so I don't know what kind of background check they have, what kind of screenings they have, their training. So at that point, I ran up, I briefed our aircraft commander, Dominic Calderon, on what the problem was and my solution. Then at that point, we stepped outside of the airplane, we started clearing weapons, which is something that as an aircraft loadmaster, we do not do normally. We clear our own weapons. We were out there clearing rifles and handguns, and that's where, thankfully for me, I was a citizen airman where I had that other career as law enforcement that I felt very comfortable clearing weapons to make the passengers and us safe. Dennis Furman, he stepped outside and he helped me clear the weapons. He was very comfortable. He said he was very familiar with clearing weapons. That's not our normal job as a loadmaster and crew chief. But like Dominic Calderon said, we all just had to do what we needed to do to get the job done.
The point, because the crew coordination and the teamwork, that when the field was overrun, when the radio call went out, still don't know where it came from, but when the call went out indicating that there were people on the field And keeping in mind, we didn't know who these people were. We didn't know how many people were on the field. But we were effectively ready to go. We just had a few stragglers coming to and from the aircraft with just small pieces of cargo, paperwork. But we had all of our evacuees that we were going to get that evening on board and prepared for departure. So when the call went out and when air traffic control, when the control tower disappeared from the radio, we were in a position to close up and taxi, avoiding those crowds. Training, coordination with the crew, experience. Silva, you heard Silva mention, he's got 32 years of service, over 30 years of experience as a mobility crew member. I myself have 17 years. So between the two of us, nearly a half century of air mobility experience, which I felt like that evening provided us the ability to make snap decisions on incredibly complex type situations to expedite the mission and get out of Kabul at the same time in a rapid amount of time. While Kyle and Mike Geller have less experience and less than 1,000 hours between them, they're also well-trained, function extremely well. I mean,
Definitely admirably.
yes, quite admirably. Accomplished checklists in a incredibly dynamic, challenging, distracting environment. Preparing the aircraft for departure. So I think that division of duties that evening in communications, and again, I'll mention him, Sergeant Dennis Gonzalez Furman, who as a crew chief is charged with maintaining the aircraft, making sure that it's safe to fly, but he did so much more than that evening. I mean, he was fuels, passenger handling, he functioned as a loadmaster, security forces, flyaway security team, and then also as a pilot, let's say, just occupying a left additional crew member seat in the cockpit, scanning for threats, using NVGs that he is not trained to use, to scan for threats on the ground and in the air. And I think it was him who first noticed the crowds coming out of the civilian terminal and spoke up on the flight deck. So absolutely couldn't have done it without any of them. Not to mention, I'd be again remiss to not mention Lieutenant William M. and his Army comm team. So just had great people, amazing people on the aircraft, and that's to what we owe our success.
Yeah, just to add to that, reiterate with training. I mean, the ability to fall back on your training and trust the training that you've had, and the ability to see a situation like that, understand the gravity of what's happening in front of you, and then having the grit and determination to press forward and know that we're going to succeed. We're going to get these people out of here, this aircraft and the people on board, out of there safely in a timely manner, and that we're going to succeed in that situation, and we're not going to let that situation stop us from achieving the mission. I had an immense amount of pride and relief in that situation.
I would say for me, I felt very proud to be an airman and be part of what brought them to safety. It goes back to while we were on the ground at Kabul. When they were bringing the American and refugees on our airplane, you could see the look of fear and terror in their eyes. They were genuinely scared. And to load them on the airplane and fly them to safety, like I said, it was just made you feel so proud, because when we landed we're in theater in a safe zone, you could just see the look of relief now on their face. And they were literally grabbing my hand, shaking my hand, just saying thank you. And like I said, very proud to be an airman to be part of that.
That mission had been, from start to finish, incredibly busy. And the mission certainly didn't end when we departed safely out of Kabul. We had coordination, a lot of coordination, a lot of phone calls to make to deliver the status of the airfield and provide other aircraft with information that they needed in order to safely accomplish their missions, or in some cases divert away from Kabul, seeing as how the field was no longer secure. And we also had our fuel issue. We were really tight on fuel. And so for the entire flight back, we were making decisions with the aircraft, flying the aircraft in such a way to deliver its cargo and passengers, evacuees, safely to our destination. So when we finally landed, I would say the passengers, the evacuees, were not the only ones who were relieved to have landed safely. So we finally let ourselves kind of breathe. In the moment, Kyle once asked me, what do you think your heart rate was, or what was going through your mind, during the evacuation? And I would say, I was very calm. It was afterwards that everything kind of caught up to us. And again, I think that's a credit to our training and our experience with one another and our experience in general. So it was a tremendous feeling, tremendous amount of pride. Of course, even with that, we had no idea what was to come in the next 15 days. That was just a precursor, and there's so many other crews, entities, support agencies, maintainers, medics, Ravens, the flyaway security teams that must have felt the same amount of pride, and for whom we feel a lot of pride and emotion. Allies Refuge was different in every possible aspect. The basic operation of the aircraft, of course, doesn't change. Still follow checklists. There's still crew resource management. We're still functioning as a crew, making decisions, but we had to make decisions quicker, more deliberately than I've ever had to do in my career. The employment of the aircraft was very different. Certainly the C-17 had floor-loaded passengers before, but not to the degree that we had done during Allies Refuge. We had also done non-combatant evacuations before, emergency airlift personnel, but never from an area that is such an inland location and isolated by mountains in a combat zone. It made the planning and execution of that mission incredibly difficult. Not to mention that the C-17 it's over half a football field long and wide, and flying a jet that size into a combat zone in the middle of the mountains to an airfield that would be challenging on the best of days if it were in a safe location, but doing so without air traffic control, without a lot of the typical support that to which the C-17 crews are accustomed, and at an ops tempo that was absolutely unprecedented, made the entire mission and operation itself unlike anything that we had ever seen. It was quite a coordinated effort and an amazing success despite the outlook at the beginning.
Okay, as Dominic Calderon had mentioned, when we flew into Kabul, our plan and mission was to deliver security to the airfield, and we had planned to leave empty. When that changed, you had to be able to think quickly and outside the box. Okay, a lot of our training from before helped. We practice what-if scenarios a lot. We go through simulator training. We have lots of abnormalities, malfunctions, emergencies, thrown at us, and we just keep on practicing to be really good at our jobs. So once we knew we had to load packs, we filled up every seat. At that point, the decision was made, or we got approval to floor load passengers. So I was talking to Airman Geller, and we were like, what's the best way to do this? And we started getting our passengers in the aircraft. We started sending them down in rows. We started putting straps across their laps. We even floor loaded groups on the back of the cargo ramp. Once that was done, like I said, you had to be able to think outside the box. At that point is when we figured out that we had to load weapons, we had to get those cleared. So you just constantly had to keep thinking, and you got to have a mindset that whatever it takes to get the job done, the job's not done until the mission's complete.
On that evening, when I most needed an aircraft to perform as advertised, it did everything we asked it to do and more. It was there with us all night, it was a great jet. The aircraft, by coincidence now, is, at the time it was named the Spirit of Berlin, and now it's been changed the Spirit of the Candy Bomber, which is an allusion to Colonel Gale Halverson. And the aircraft participated in a remembrance event in Utah just a few weeks ago. And at that aircraft, at that event, it was a static display, and they had a small, they say exhibit, if you would call it that, as an explanation of what happened, of what that aircraft had seen, the mission that it had been a part of on the 15th of August with our crew. Pretty neat.
I have a lot of years of experience, and like I said, I've been in stressful, dangerous environments before, and looking back at the mission, while we were going through all of our challenges, I feel very safe because not once while we were on the ground going through what we were going through did it cross my mind that the airplane was going to break down. I felt the airplane was just, I didn't even think about it at the time. In fact, I didn't think about that until probably about a week ago, that, about the plane possibly breaking down. That thought did not even cross my mind.
Just to add to what you said, everything I had done up until that point was very straightforward and by the book. And this situation was just so dynamic and different that we didn't have the time to sit there and belabor over decisions or look at things under a microscope. We had to go, and we had to make swift, deliberate decisions and press forward, and under a very, very difficult circumstances.
I would like to again reiterate how proud I am, not only of course of this crew, the 301st Airlift Squadron. The 301st, we were not the only crew from the 301st that participated in this operation. There were 5 other crews that participated in some way, shape, or form, and that is an exceptional number for a reserve squadron for its members that have civilian jobs in the summer of 2021, when there was no summer of 2020, when people are going back to work. It's an incredible showing of patriotism and dedication to one's unit, nation, Air Force, and to say nothing about the crews from outside the 301st, but active duty crews, all the other Guard and Reserve crews. I just spent this past weekend at the New York Air National Guard at Stewart, attending another Distinguished Flying Cross ceremony for another crew from the 16th of August, the day after our mission. And I think there will be more to come. After this mission, sort of unwittingly found myself as a stage manager in the Middle East, launching crews to fly this evacuation for 2 weeks and looking the crews in the eyes. When we stepped to fly on the 15th of August, we did not know the circumstances that we were flying into. These crews that we launched for the next 2 weeks, they knew what they were going into. And despite the emotion, despite the danger, despite everything that was against them, they still, one after another, stepped the jet and flew combat missions in incredibly challenging circumstances. So the entire C-17 community is pretty impressive. Not to mention anything about all the support agencies that assisted.